Kravitz. If you have not followed his Triple H horse racing podcast, you're missing out. It's one of the best podcasts in the country.
Hey, what's happening, everybody? Welcome to episode 24 of Horsin Around. I'm your host again, Pete Visco, filling in for Howard Kravitz, who this time is getting ready. Hopefully, he's sharpening the tucks, doing whatever you do to puff up a top hat to get ready for Ascot tomorrow. Although we heard no top hat, which is pretty disappointing, but we'll do what we can. Hopefully he has his little beanie on or whatever that thing he's been wearing all around Europe. Today, Paul and I, who's going to be joining me in a few minutes, are going to be recapping some of the stakes races from Monmouth, Churchill, and then we're going to talk about one race at Aqueduct, and we're going to have a quick little discussion about 3-year-olds leading into the summer off the heels of the Pegasus. Before we get to that, just a few administrative items. If you see scrolling on the bottom of the screen, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. The more subscribers, the better. Then we get to see, YouTube knows that we're a show that people like. Hit the like button, hit the notification bell. Again, if we have ad hoc content, like actually Davey and Howard posted a taped episode today for tomorrow's Ascot races, and I think they may be doing one tomorrow as well. So if you hit that notification bell and you're a subscriber, you'll know when our normal shows, our non-normal shows pop up, so you won't miss any of that great content, especially with a big meet like Ascot coming up. For our audio listeners, same thing. Please listen, subscribe, rate, review, no matter which platform you use, Spotify, Apple, Anchor, wherever you get your podcasts. Follow the HHH Racing podcast feed on Twitter/X. Our show's handle is @HKravitz, and we're on Instagram at instagram.com/HHH Racing Podcast. Also, you can follow any of the hosts. We usually put our handle in our signature on the screen. Check out our website, hhhracingpodcast.com. Has a little bit of everything, sample podcasts, power picks, info, photos. There's tons of photos from Howard and Davey's trip so far. So if you go on our photo page, they're there. Articles from the great Paul Halloran. If you can get links to buy Matt Miller's book, there's so much stuff on the website. Please check it out. Again, the power picks aforementioned, $15.99 a month, $4 a week. You can order and subscribe on Patreon. The link is below the video player, and it's also on our website. So definitely check that out as well. Upcoming shows, like I said, I think there's going to be some tape shows, so keep an eye out for those. But this week, our regularly scheduled shows on Wednesday, the Betting and Boozing guys, I think are going to be covering Canterbury Park. I'm not sure if that's 100% confirmed. And then on Thursday, the Picks and Ponies, myself and Paul, and I don't remember if Howard's going to be back just yet. We will be covering Ohio Derby Day at Thistledown. So that's going to be a good one. The return of Catching Freedom, and it looks like a pretty stakes-laden late pick 5. So that's going to be a fun one. So without further ado, let me bring on my co-host for tonight, the fantastic from the Saratoga Special, one of our favorites from Picks and Ponies, Paul Halloran. What's up, Paul? How's it going, my friend? We're on mute. Monday Blues. What's going on, man? How's it going?
Good, Pete. We're going to have to be efficient tonight. We all want to be available for Banner 18 tonight, don't we?
Well, some of us want to be available for a 3-2 series, but we'll see.
I'll tell you what, Pete. I'm not going to be shocked. I know that was a disgraceful effort for the Celtics Friday night. And I know, 3-0, but it's one thing to lose. But so I don't know.
Get mauled like that. Well, we'll try and keep it. Nobody cares about the first quarter of basketball games anyway.
Correct.
NBA games are all fourth quarter anyway. I did see Porzingis has no limit restriction, so that's something. So let's see real quick before we get into it. Let's check real quick who's in the chat here. KYHP. Pete, been into horses about a year now. What's the best way to get into the business side of capping? Oh man. There's a ton of different ways. I mean, do what we do. Just get on here and just start running your mouth on screen. And then if you do that and you get a little bit of a following on, say, Twitter, you could start putting some picks out. I mean, I think that's the easiest way. The marketplace is wide open now. It's a little different than probably it used to be, where you're trying to get on television is the only way, or doing sort of the feature handicapper at a track. Katie, always here early. I was chatting with her before the show. She's very pumped for Royal Ascot tomorrow, Tuesday. When again, there's a show that Howard and Davey put up. If you joined a little late, Howard and Davey put up a show that I think covered maybe the first 4 races tomorrow, and then had some technical difficulties. But check that out. Ascot is always a fantastic meet, Paul. That one's always got some great fields, races, and you always get some payouts too, which I love.
Yeah, it'll lead to some non-productive mornings.
We don't say that to anybody. We don't tell. We don't want our work people to know that that's happening.
We talk about it, Pete. We always mention at the Breeders' Cup and Saratoga, maybe Keeneland to a degree. You don't have to hit too many. And Ascot really typically would amplify that, right? That if you could hit 1 out of the 7, you should be good for the day.
I've had my best non like horizontal pick 5 day at Ascot, just hitting a bunch of exactas, and they were paying $250 because they were hitting 20 horse fields, and you hit a couple big exactas or trifectas and you can go nuts there. Hey, we got a nice message here from Cool Cav 75. Thanks again, Pete, for the Monmouth late pick 4 picks. We had both Paul and I on the tip sheet this week, had the Monmouth pick 5, so didn't pay the best, but it's still better than ripping them up for sure. We like that. Spoiler alert, they were both sporting their straw hats. Yeah, we know, Jason. That neither one of them, I don't know if they're debonair enough to pull off the top hat. We'll have to see how they look in the pictures tomorrow. Tom Espinoza, don't worry, Paul, your Celtics will close it out. Well, I don't know if you want to take advice from a Warriors fan the way their season went.
They've won their share.
That's true. They did okay with themselves. All right. Well, let's jump in real quick. So this shouldn't be too long of a show tonight. We're just going to hit some stakes races, and then we're going to have a little 3-year-old discussion just about the summer, with the summer big races coming up. So actually, we're going to start there. I'm going to put this on the screen. We're going to start with the Pegasus, the 10th race at Monmouth on Saturday, won by Tuscan Sky by 6 3/4. So I guess the first thing, and I'll let the race run, Paul, but I want to talk about the beginning. Usually we sort of skip ahead, but the beginning of this race, I don't know if you were watching live, was sort of crazy. What'd you think when you were watching? I don't remember seeing that in a big stakes race like that, where the horses just went out and sort of dueled 5 across the track, basically like that. I don't remember seeing that in a big race like that before.
Well, especially a 2-turn, right?
2-turn, that's what I meant. Sorry. Yeah, in a route race. Yeah, you don't see that very often. Yeah.
And frankly, if you got the 7 at 2-1 here,
it took a lot of money late, that 7.
Yeah, he really did, didn't he?
Yeah.
I liked Tuscan Sky in this race. I didn't expect it to be this type of command performance. The domestic product was coming off. You throw out the Derby, but coming off a grind them out type win in the Tampa Derby. But certainly right here, Pete. You got 5 within a length of the lead. So
I was telling my wife, and she has no idea. So I was like, "This is crazy. What's going on?" And I was like, "Watch this 3 horse. I think it was Otello, right? The 3.
Yes.
Like, watch the 3 horses just sitting. It might just be the beneficiary, but I guess Tuscan Sky just being on the rail and not being wide on both turns, I guess, and probably just being the best horse in the race and the fastest, was really the ultimate beneficiary. But yeah, domestic product was a weird one. Well, I'm not sure why he was up close. He doesn't seem like that's the kind of race he wants to run, but and then here Tuscan Sky just sort of kicks away and just blows the field away. What'd you think?
Yeah.
I know you liked him, but did you think of him as, hey, I just don't like this field, or you just think that last race was just a clunker and it was sort of a toss and you can let that one go? Yeah,
that was it, Pete. That really was it.
Here, the wood was just a head scratcher, because and I guess my question was, in handicapping the race, was the first 2 were on wet tracks and he had Lasix. Were those the reasons that moved him up? Was it either one? Was it both? And then the Wood, he loses both of those and runs like crap. So that was my, hey, if you're trying to beat a low priced horse, that's your ammunition. But obviously that didn't come to pass in this race.
Yeah, and didn't it turn out, Pete, that this field maybe wasn't quite as good as we thought? Domestic product, that was a head scratcher. There was a lot of talk about the 8. I think we all used them. I used them as a B. I had them on my caveman.
Yeah.
No excuses from the 8, who took money as well.
Yes.
Hades, there was, they were talking about Hades up, down, and all around on TV. It's a shame to see the great Paco Lopez get beat.
Yeah. He comes away with he gets a 99 buyer, which, is if you toss the Wood, now we're on sort of that steady upswing again, which is what I think. I think people had high hopes for this horse. It's right up your alley, a Vino Rosso with Curlin and Spendthrift, Pletcher. it looks like a horse that could be someone to contend with as we get later in the year for sure.
Yeah, I got to think if you're Pletcher, you're at least thinking Travers for this guy, right? Off that effort.
Well, how's his barn looking for? He can bounce around with Tuscan Sky, a little fierceness, a little mind frame. He seems to be doing all right.
Yeah, but I don't know about an interim. So that was June 15th. You got the Jim Dandy. You got the Jim Dandy stuck right in the middle, which would be, that'd be a logical spot if you wanted to take the next. Sierra Leone is apparently going to show up
pointing there, right?
Jim Dandy.
Yeah.
So, hey, look, Pete, you throw out that Wood, and this horse is 3 for 3. And I thought that was a really good effort Saturday. He did get the trip, a great ride by Mr. Castellano. So he made the trip worthwhile going down to the shore.
Yeah.
But, I would say that, we'll talk about the 3-year-olds later, Pete. It's a division begging for someone to step up and assert himself, we all know the herself is Torpedo Anna.
Yeah, I was going to mention it. Actually, why don't that was one of the topics, and this is probably a good point to do it. I'll put a little note up on the screen. We were just going to do nothing official, nothing too in-depth. We were just going to say, okay, now after the Pegasus, where Tuscan Sky maybe put his hat back in the ring and the Triple Crown season is over, let's just call out a few, not who's been the best up until this point. Not if we were saying, hey, if you gave out the Eclipse today, who would you give it to? That would be a sort of a toss-up. It's probably like Mystic Dan, sadly, but which isn't awe-inspiring in any stretch. But I'll say, so if you were to say, give me your top 3 for the summer in terms of improve, do you have sort of a top 3 that you think on the way to, say, the Haskell, Dandy, Travers, Pennsylvania Derby, those kind of races? No order or anything, just in general. Who do you think are sort of at the top of that list at this point?
Well, I think you have to stick with Mind Frame, Pete. Mind Frame, probably would have won the Belmont had he not taking those 2 or 3 steps to his right.
Yeah.
And for a third start, has a right to be green. Hopefully, he won't stay quite as green as our friend Mr. Leone, who I will say was less green in the Belmont and just wasn't good enough. Yeah. But I think you have to have Mind Frame in there. Who knows if Baffert's going to get Nisos back? Nisos was the horse people were talking about as maybe his best. Youth is another horse that could be heard from later in the year. Fierceness remains an enigma. That's going to be a horse that beats me when he wins next time. Hey, look, Dornock won that race fair and square. Yeah. And if we're talking about throwing out the Wood, if you throw out the Derby and then you realize that Danny Gargan's ridiculous decision to try to rate in the Bluegrass, Dornock looked very good in that race. So you can't, and the horse we just talked about, Tuscan Sky, who knows? Now the horse is just about a triple digits, right? Yeah. And likely to move forward off of that. I'd bet Tuscan Sky at 15-1 in the Travers right now if I were, given the opportunity.
I mean, he's tactical. He can make a good trip. I mean, and that's the thing. No one really has stood out. And if you're just looking at it purely from a figure standpoint, no one's had that. Fierceness did. But again, fierceness, he can throw in 110 or he can throw in a 75 buyer if you're looking just at figures. So who the heck knows with him? Let's see if there's any. Sorry, I was ignoring the chat. Let's see if anybody has. If you have any thoughts in the chat too, definitely. Who do you like going forward? I'm with you. I think parenting new going to the Haskell. There you go.
Yeah, I ran well the other day.
Yeah. Baffert 3-year-olds. I mean, you can't ever discount the Bafferts. The problem is you just don't know. There's always a little something wrong with them. I think, Encino. Encino's one that I liked. I just hadn't heard much about. I didn't know what his next plans were. So I'm with you with Mindframe. I think Mindframe has to sort of be at the top just because there's still so much growth there. Hey, Mike, how's it going? What about we talked about? Well, we're going to see Catching Freedom this weekend. Catching Freedom hasn't taken like that huge step forward, and he's pretty pace dependent. He's probably my favorite out of the crop, but right now he seems more like a board horse than a winner. But it wouldn't shock me if he caught, if we get some speed in one of these. And then Torpedo Anna, I know McPeak has said he's pointing her to the CCA Oaks, the Alabama,
and then the Alabama.
But that was under the condition that Mystic Dan was going to run in the big male races, I think. And if for some reason Mystic Dan doesn't go, does he sort of switch? Does he switch that path at some point? Who knows? What do you think about her? Do you think she could compete if she gets in it?
I would have to guess yes at this point. I think Mystic Dan, I think he trains up to the Travers. He had the 3 races in 5 weeks.
Yeah.
And I think how he runs in the Travers is going to determine what Kenny does with Torpedo Anna going forward.
Yeah.
You wouldn't rule out a possibility of, Kenny maybe taking a shot against the boys, back downstate at Aqueduct. And then, if let's just say he ran her against the boys, and I don't know what's down there. Is it the Jockey Club maybe? Let's just say she runs her eyeballs out. Now is he going to swing for a Grand Slam in the Classic? You just
yeah.
So I think it's very interesting, Pete. I do think people say, well, you can't call the crop mediocre in the middle of the year. Well, it's a mediocre crop. Yes,
mediocre. Yeah,
it's mediocre. Okay,
it doesn't mean that somebody can't step forward.
Correct.
It just means at this point. No one's really shined.
Right. I mean, someone wins the Jim Dandy and Travers back to back. Okay, now we get
now we're getting somewhere.
Now we're talking, but it's going to make the Classic interesting, Pete, because you usually default to the best 3-year-old going into that race. Of course, White Barrio was an older horse last year who looked very tough, but the horses we've seen right now, is there any knowing the older horse division isn't exactly loaded yet either. Someone put a good question in the chat about Arthur's Ride.
Yes.
Arthur's Ride ran that monster allowance race at
where was that? That was
Saratoga.
Saratoga.
It was at Saratoga on Friday. Ran 2 seconds faster. We talked about this last week. He ran 2 seconds faster than the Suburban, which is a Grade 2 race won by Krupe.
Yeah.
That's an interesting question. All I know this about Arthur's Ride, the next time you see Arthur's Ride, the name of the race is going to have the word stakes in it.
Yeah.
Okay. It may not be a Grade 1, but although, you got to wonder, Pete, let's see if we know Mr. Mott's not afraid to take a shot in the Whitney because he stretched Cody's Wish out to 1 1/8 last year.
Yeah.
I don't know. Arthur's Ride didn't run against anyone, but boy, he put up a big number, and we talked about it last week. Junior thought he would have won by more without the loose horse, and he won by 12 3/4. So.
Well, and it's not like he just came completely out of nowhere. I mean, he was a well thought of horse who just threw in a clunker 2 races back, and people were sort of off the scent, I think, at that point. But if maybe that was just the outlier and the rest of his races were what he is and he's still improving, why not? Again, the handicap division, National Treasure looks pretty strong off that last win, but I don't think anybody's scared of him. It's not like he's not Flightline or anything.
Well,
he's really good, and then there's a bunch of love in the chat for Forever Young, who from a 3-year-old standpoint might be near the top, but we know he's not going to be here for any of those summer races. So he's not really one we need to talk about for that. Sorry, were you going to say something? Do you have another point on?
Well, no, I was going to, I think I talked about it going on last Thursday. The Wednesday show we did prior to Saratoga. I changed my opinion on National Treasure 180 on that dirt mile last year.
Yeah.
Because the thing you have to remember is Cody's Wish beat him by a nose, but it wasn't on the last jump. Cody's Wish hooked him. Actually got by inside the 16th pole. And, forget about all the contact, which, by the way, Pete, you'll appreciate. I keep teasing this book that it will get written. I had a very lengthy conversation last week with Bob Baffert.
Oh, nice.
For the purposes of, for my book, I wanted to talk about, obviously, the inquiry, right? And he just about said, for his owner's sake, he really can't say, I didn't want to be put up in the Breeders' Cup, but he pretty much, But anyway,
he's not a fan favorite to begin with in some circles.
Right.
To have that happen,
no, they would have blamed him, right?
So, yeah, it would have been his fault.
But I did mention to him when we were done talking about the Breeders' Cup, is he going to send the horse back for the Whitney? And he seems like that's a distinct possibility. He doesn't love the idea of shipping across the country multiple times, yet he's not afraid to do it. And remember, the big Saratoga yearling sale starts that Monday, and Bob comes for that.
Yeah.
Anyway, as I said, so Bob, you got to come for the sale anyway. Why not just come with National Treasure?
Bring a partner with you.
So I believe, I'll be honest with you, Pete, Forever Young is a definite factor. We got the bad news, Pete, last week. City of Troy is not going to be put into the Travers, which is very disappointing to me. I had already reserved a stall in the quarantine barn. I was going to stay with him. I was going to be embedded with him the whole time. But Pete, they are targeting the Classic. So
that's nice.
If we get Forever Young, City of Troy, and whoever our top 3-year-old is, and whoever our top older horse is, boy, that could end up being a hell of a race at Delmont.
Yeah, now we're talking. Yeah, I mean, whatever it's going to take to make. I mean, it shakes out better than we think it's going to early in the year. Generally, I mean, we've had some bad classics, but it generally gets a little better. And actually, this is a fantastic segue to the next race that we're going to talk about. Let me put us up. So we're going to talk now about the Salvatore Mile and the winner, Bright Future. Let's look at.
Speaking of the Whitney, Pete.
Yes, right. I would assume. So this was a funny race. I think me and you were both live to the pick 5 in this one. Did you have him singled or did you?
Well, with the dead heats, Pete, it was kind of hard to keep track. But the long and short of it is, I was alive to Bright Future for $1.50. And I was alive to a few. You know who I was alive to for 50 cents, Pete? The horse Emily gave us, the 7. Oh, I was really rooting for because it was paying $4,500.
Well, I would have been doing that myself. I would have been doing that too. Well, you
see, but this is a good effort, isn't it? I mean, great trip.
But at one point, I thought he was done, and I'm sitting there cursing like I can't believe another even money shot, an even money single is gonna blow a pick 5 for me, but. So I don't know if you look right here, he's starting to, he's still running fine, but he's pumping on him a little bit. And he looked like he was losing just a touch of ground right here. You're looking at it going, boy, is this horse done? I don't know if that's what you were thinking. I'm looking at it going, is he done right here? Because it wasn't looking great, but then you figure the rail's going to open. And then let's see.
It's a good thing it did, Pete.
It's a good thing. And look at that horse.
But what's right about now?
Then he just, boom, gone.
And I don't know. Maybe it was, maybe it was a byproduct of the field. I liked Artorias.
Exactly. He didn't do squat.
He was really, really impressively bad. Emily's horse ran okay. That 7 ran okay.
Was making.
And I gotta tell you what, I would have never considered that. I was thrilled to be alive to that horse for 4,500. But Pete, if I can insert a mini rant into this, I know you love these.
We didn't do a rant last week, so let's rant away for sure.
Can the cameraman at Monmouth understand one thing? You put the camera on a horse in the gallop out if you are sure the horse won. In both dead heats, and sometimes they're running, they're galloping out close to each other so you can get them in the frame, but otherwise they typically will go. So in the first dead heat, I was sure the 5 won, yet he had the camera on the other horse the whole time.
Time. Yep.
On the second dead heat, now I'm going out. We had to go out to a function. I watched the race. I got my phone. I'm gonna watch the last race on my phone if I'm alive. And there was even the TV guys, Pete, I'm sure you're watching. Yeah. It was no one was really talking about the fact that the 9 might have got in there.
Well, what's funny? I didn't even, because I had the 9 and I had a couple. I forget who it was.
You didn't have the 7, I bet.
I did not have the 7, and I'm sitting there going, I didn't even realize, because I thought the 9 was done coming down the lane. I thought the 9 backed up. I didn't realize that was the 9 closing inside the 7. So, and then I say, well, that's a little closer, but the camera was just following the 7 all around, and I'm going, crap, am I done? I'm like, come on, man. I don't. And then when the dead heat came up, I was like, this is fantastic.
Well, it's funny.
So faded from 2.
I'll tell you what. So I leave the house, Pete, thinking I lost. So I'm bullshit, right?
Yeah.
And we went down just to a local pub. There was a little party for a good friend of mine who's retired after coaching soccer 25 years. And I see the group text, the HHH thread with Kyle and you, and I said, oh, a dead heat. I'm alive. Now I will watch the last one.
So, now I'll watch it. You see,
not that matters,
but had the 7 in with my picks. Good call on that. Kev.
That's a real good call.
That's beautiful.
But, the cameraman was acting like, Pete, they weren't even photos.
I thought he acted like he won by 15. I was like, what are we doing here? At least make me feel good that I might have a shot. Come on, man.
So anyway, I got a happy ending. I did, what did it pay, 240 something for 50?
240 something. Yeah.
Yeah, so I had that 3 times, which, is better than a hot stick in the eye.
Hey, it's always better than ripping it up. That's what I'll say. So, and I had the 2 horses who dead heated in the first leg. So I wound up catching it twice. So again, it was a winning day because I didn't do a ton aside from the pick 5. And then I got killed on a couple of races at Hawthorne. I don't think they're going to want me handicapping Hawthorne after last week's. Although the biggest
you said that was going to happen. You knew that was going to happen.
Well, it's funny though, because Emily's horses weren't winning either. So there was a $70 horse and like $150 horse in that sequence. So, and then the horse that I loved the most broke. It's one of those where it's like they break out of the gate and the horse is 5 lengths behind the field, and you go, here we go, I'm done. And then he closed and lost by whatever, like a head. And I was like, that's not the one I want. But there's no one else. I didn't want to mention. I don't have anyone else to mention in here. I mean, Coastal Mission's okay. Cheryl Spite, I'll put Cheryl Spite back on the turf. Artorias was disappointing. Sherlock's Jewel. No, I don't think there's anything big to come out of this, right? The rest of them are just sort of.
It's just we'll see how good Bright Future can be. I think Bright Future goes to the Whitney, which the Whitney actually could be shaping up as a very, very good race.
Right? It's going to be. So. You see, he came home in under 24, and he got a 94 buyer, which isn't much, but it also was. They weren't exactly lighting it up front. He did all the work late. And I just think he's better. If you look at just his races, I just think he's better going longer. You see, he's out of a Curlin, out of Sophia's Song and Bellamy Road. I just think distance is his friend, and a mile's maybe a little too tight for him. You see all his lower buyers and figures were actually going a mile, and he got better when they stretched him out. So I'm assuming he's gonna look better as these races get a little longer. The rest of them here we'll just zip through real quick.
Yeah.
We have the 7 tax implications. This was which one? The Eatontown. Which this I had a bunch of horses. I think I had the top 4. And this was just a nice ride by Pratt. We'll just look at the stretch real quick. We won't show the whole race. I thought he got just really a perfect trip though. I didn't think there was much going on here. And I thought Mom and June, the 9, who was, you could see there sort of hanging out in dead last, was the one I thought maybe. Look at that. You're going 25 to the quarter. I forget what they go, a 51. And the 9 closes from pretty deep into that pace. You got to think the 9 is the one that you're going to look for going forward. What'd you think about this race?
Or the horses who are running second and fourth, third and fourth here, you don't really want any part of.
No, God, no.
Because they got caught by a horse who was chasing 51.
115.
Yeah,
ridiculous.
Yeah, I was only on the 6 and 7 in that race. I had the 4 as a B, the horse we talked about, the motion horse, who ended up getting scratched. I used the 1, Pete, as a B, and I got to tell you, looking at the betting on that race, the fact that horse was the favorite. This race was a betting opportunity, by the way, and I missed it.
I want to tell you, almost every podcast I listened to was on Sacred Wish. And it's funny because I had Sacred Wish tossed, but I heard enough people. And every once in a while I get sucked in and I include a horse on a ticket I don't like. And it pisses me off when they don't run well because I just wasted money or I left another horse off in another spot just to include that one. Here, let's see what we got. Ronnie used only the 9 on top and no pay. Yeah,
9 ran well.
Yeah,
I mean, I was in a situation, Pete. I didn't want to not hit it if Sacred Wish won, but looking at what it paid, it only pays like 200 with Sacred Wish.
Yeah,
Sacred Wish was 3-2. Okay, this is a turf race. Okay, Sacred Wish was 3-2, and ran second in a decent grade 3 turf at Aqueduct, but no, and clearly better on turf than dirt, maybe. Ran second in the coaching club to wet paint, by the way. But my point is, there's nothing wrong with Sacred Wish, but you do have to pay attention to the board. And Sacred Wish at 7-2 in this race, I think would have been okay. Maybe 3-1, but 3-2.
Yeah, that makes no sense to me.
You can't. If you're betting the race individually and you're using Sacred Wish at 3-2, you're really missing something.
Some rocks in here. Here's a quick side question, real quick. Batting down out of close house. Did you have any info, Paul?
Well, I answered below. The only thing I know is he's running in the Ohio Derby this weekend.
Yeah. And is he definitely going? I saw the PPs are out. I don't remember if he's.
Yeah, I believe he's going because I get my friend Junior on my jockey.
Okay.
My jockey watch and
on your stable.
On my Equibase, and I believe my friend Junior has a round trip ticket to Ohio for this weekend.
Beautiful. We like when that happens. So real quick on this, I don't look at tax implications. Tax implication also just seems to really like Monmouth. Broke the maiden at Monmouth, had the 2 races back, ran pretty well, sitting right off the pace, and then had the nice win. I don't know if tax implications is the kind of horse I'm going to be looking for, stepping up too far beyond this into like grade 1 or anything. So I think it's just a good quality horse. It's a Chad Brown, so it's going to be quality. I still think Mom and June, though, there could be some improvement if this horse can actually get some pace finally to run into. Still is sort of light. It's only been with Chad 3 races, has improved everyone, and still hasn't had a ton of pace in any of them necessarily. And you figure maybe you can move that one up, and if you can get some horses up front. Although if you stick in New York, you're not going to get any pace up front on the turf. But,
well, I'll tell you what, Pete, I'm with you. I thought Mom and June ran well in that race.
Yeah.
For many reasons, but obviously the pace. The pace is what you expect the horse to be as far behind as she was because that's how she runs. But I don't know. I thought it was a kind of an odd race. Again, to see a couple of horses who were sitting right on top of that pace chuck it in late like that. I mean,
Yeah.
I guess you could say tax implications. You got to give her credit too for closing into that glacial-like pace and winning. But certainly the 9 was running late. And, Pete, if the 9 is the 4th Chad Brown in a stakes race,
I like
those.
I like the fourth. I like
You better take a look, pal.
And I really think that with Mom and June, a little even more distance is going to be, we went a mile and a 16th here. I think even more distance will be the friend. Not that every closer likes more distance, but I think that one is one that probably will. Let's jump real quick. This one, again, the Monmouth Stakes, this is the one you were talking about, the dead heat. We'll just show the end here. Again, I don't know if there's a ton of huge horses, but I think it's a solid field, and I think there's some horses that could do some damage at, sort of that grade 3-ish, maybe even grade 2 level if you caught the right day. Oh, here we go.
Yeah, this was this race was not really shaping up that well as it was being run. I mean, I had Adamo as a C. The 6.
I didn't like it, Dom. I'm done with it.
So if you look here, it was totally defensive, Pete.
Here's Fort Washington. Here's running B. I had Siege of Boston came through the rail. I thought was a winner at this point, and then just sort of flattened out a bit. And then the 8 is, I forget which one the 8 is, but so I didn't even. So you see there,
Tawny Port, who I liked.
Tawny Port is the 8. Yes, you're right. Apologies. Yes.
At different times in the race, Pete, I thought Tawny Port was going to win.
Yeah.
At the clip you just showed when they finally straightened out for home, Pete, I thought Grand Sonata was going to win, the 4 on the outside.
Really flattened out. Yeah, that one
had
really
him. I will tell you what, Pete, based on the way I thought the race was going to be run, I think the 9 ran huge. Because
I do too.
We were talking, and then you and I were back and forth on the. We were trying to construct. You were constructing the power picks. I was offering just a little feedback, but I think we both thought that the reason the 9 was a use was going to be probably right on top of that pace and get first run. And if you told me he was going to be 5th coming down the lane, I would have said, okay, I'll move on.
I'm done. Well, that's why I stopped. I sort of thought he was done because I'm like, he's not running his race today. I just thought he was in the crapper. So I'm looking at it going, this horse is done. And then all of a sudden I'm like, who the heck is that? And they said, oh, that's running B. And I was like, oh, let's get the head bob, because he looked like got the head bob, but didn't necessarily have the Fort Washington definitely had the body in front, but.
That was good, because I was really pissed off after this race, Pete. Can I say I could say that on this race?
You could say that on
just
here.
Because it's one of those deals. You go back and look, and you say, well, Fort Washington did hit the board in some pretty decent races, but 6/3 out of 17. I'm like, how many horses? How deep do I have to go to get beat by this guy? In this race, I used the 2, the 4, the 5, the 6. The 8 and the 9.
Jesus.
So, A, B, C, obviously.
Yeah,
and
sure.
And I'm saying, I get beat by, and Kendrick, of course, Kendrick typically is on a dirt horse going wire to wire. I'm like, oh, good, I'm getting beat by Kendrick on a turf horse. Closing. That we needed the 9 to get a piece.
Apparently this horse just likes some Monmouth. You come back and you get this horse at Monmouth 2 for 2. You like that a little bit. There you go. So you got to that's one to keep an eye out when he runs like crap in the next few races, and then they bring him back to Monmouth at some point down the road. Then you say, I'll catch him at 20, 25 to 1 again. Yeah, I don't know if there's a ton out of here in terms of long term. I think Tawny Port is a solid horse. Maybe was liking that. It just doesn't win much. I mean, he's got the win back here at 1 5/8. But if you look on the screen here, there's not a lot of wins on the form here, but just runs his race every time. So he's fine. I don't think a ton there. I think running B could be pretty solid from a figure standpoint. That was pretty good if you toss the one on the soft turf. Put this one on fast turf, on firm turf, I should say. You get a lot of wins and a lot of decent numbers on firm turf.
And Pete, we talked about Victor Cheminot, and
I was actually going to mention that. Yep.
We talked about Victor on the show last week, and Victor was on that 9. We talked about the moon, Maman June.
Yes.
Victor was on that horse closing, and obviously a very good ride. Victor was the rider of Didier, and we talked about it, as Tyler knows. It's a tough business. Didier was really, really not ridden well. It was too far back in the Breeders' Cup, and they ended up making a change to Jose. But Victor Cheminot, especially on turf, can really ride. I believe he rode regularly at Colonial last summer, Pete, if I'm not mistaken. He was on the Kentucky circuit this spring. And, that's two of the races we just talked about. He had two damn good rides.
Yeah. And
Vincent Sylvain. You're right, Sylvain. Me apologies. It's Vincent Cheminot. Not Victor. Vincent Cheminot. How's that, Sylvain?
There you go. Thank you, Sylvain.
I owe Sylvain a beer. We couldn't connect at Saratoga. I told you we were messaging, and it was like if someone was 2 sections over, it was like, oh boy, how long is this going to take? But we will catch up with Sylvain and have a beer for Vincent Cheminot.
Yes, that is definite. All right, let's switch. We're going to switch gears for a second here. We're going to go over to Churchill for a couple quick ones. Nothing too huge here, but I did want to note 2 horses because they could have, in theory, I don't know if it's necessarily agree with this. They could have some impact down the road. We're going to look first at the Monomoy Girl, who was a monster in her own right. Our Pretty Woman for Steve Asmussen and Luis Saez. Came back, finally gets after we'll look at her real quick. After the clunker in the Oaks, again, it was the Kentucky Oaks, so not the worst thing in the world, but just was a horse that I think some people liked, at least to be a part of the pace, if nothing else, and just was awful. And then came back and wins this race, but I'm not so sure there was much in here. I think these might just be some sort of middle level horses in this crop. So I don't know. Did you think anything necessarily about Our Pretty Woman moving forward, or is she just, hey, I beat a short field of not the best horses?
Well, I think the race was slow, Pete. And I just looked. I was wondering with the buyer, and you just put it up.
Yeah,
I was looking
82.
at the time. I mean, 25 seconds flat. If that's accurate. Pete, before we go any further, this is a horse trained by Steve Asmussen. I don't know if you caught the news today, but real tragedy today was reported. No. Toby Sheets, Steve Asmussen, as we all know, runs everywhere, right?
Yeah.
And as much as he travels, he can't be in every place at once. And, he has pretty much a key person in each of his locations. Well, Toby Sheets was his guy in New York. And Toby, unfortunately, was found dead on a beach on a Greek island the other day. And it's kind of one of those weird stories, maybe, that this is like some isolated Greek island where now 2 or 3 tourists have first disappeared and or shown up dead in the last couple of months. But anyway, Toby I did not know Toby, to be honest with you. Certainly have seen him at the New York tracks, but sympathies to everyone involved in Steve's operation.
Definitely.
Again, Pete, if you throw out the Oaks, it's just that I don't know how much we can glean from this race. It was slow, even though she was sitting off a slow pace, but a perfect trip. She could be really good, but you can't say that she's really good based on this race. I guess that would be although Pete, if I did watch the replay, don't tell Churchill I went to the Naira Bet site to watch it. Shh,
we don't do that.
Don't tell Churchill I watched the replay. No, Pete, no one, and I mean no one. I'm not saying he is the best jockey. He's one of the best, but no one can start working on a horse earlier and getting him run longer than Luis Saez.
Yeah, for sure.
If you watch a race and you see your jockey is really into the horse as on the turn, you pretty much know you ain't winning the race.
No.
Right? Because you're asking too soon. Luis Saez, Pete, he can ask a damn horse at the 3/8 pole and ride him all the way to the wire. Yeah, and if you go back and watch this race, I don't want to tell you how to do it, but you can do it on Naira Bets. Don't tell anyone. Don't tell Churchill. You can actually watch
the races. We wouldn't want that to happen. That would be too much.
You can watch it on the Churchill website. It just requires a little, instead of going click right there on the formulator. But anyway, he started Pete on this horse early,
Yeah.
and again, it looks like it was a pretty nondescript field. It scratched down to a field of 5.
Yeah.
Intricate was clearly the other horse, Brendan Walsh.
Intricate just doesn't look like she's gotten any better this year. So I think she was well thought of. She's come back. She just hasn't had that really. She was making up some ground late.
Yeah, I was going to say, Pete, this is what I'm going to do. In honor of Uncle Howard, who is on the other side of the ocean, I will tell you to go back and watch the gallop out of this, because I did.
Yes, did you?
I did, out of respect to my uncle, my great uncle, out of respect to my great uncle, and Intricate galloped out beyond Pretty Woman like she wasn't even standing there. So I think you can make. I think you. Again, I don't know what was in the race, Pete, but put it this way: I would be just as likely to play Intricate out of this race as I would Pretty Woman.
Well, I assume you'll get Intricate at a price too, if and she looks, just from breeding perspective, and if you say the gallop out, maybe we get a little bit more distance. We start getting into the longer races. Maybe that's her calling card. And even if you don't like her to win, she could be a horse that double digits hits the board on you. Because again, it's not like after Torpedo Anna, do you love anybody? They all seem to be.
No, there's a lot of, we love Tarifa, and
we'll see what happens.
She's got to come back. But isn't Howard going to be proud when he watches this and hears me talking about the gallop out?
I mean, the next thing
you're going to like a proud uncle.
The next thing you're going to talk to me is about the weather in Ohio on Saturday already. You saw the forecast.
I can assure you that's not going to happen. All I know is the weather.
If you start doing that, I don't think we could be friends anymore. I think we're
Pete,
done.
I can tell you that the weather in Boston is going to be Hades-like starting tomorrow.
Oh yeah, we're in the 90s here too. So we're
Thursday here, maybe 100.
Oh my God, brutal. Stay inside, man. Stay in the AC.
Stay inside and bet Ascot.
In Bet Ascot, that's the beauty during the day. That's what Katie was saying earlier. Katie was saying she's going to beat the heat by betting.
Katie's the best. Katie's the best.
All right, real quick, we'll just knock out these last two. I don't want to spend too much time. I just wanted to mention Web Slinger because this is a Web Slinger household, because we love Spider-Man in my house. The Churchill Stakes. I don't know if I was pronouncing that correctly. And I wonder, too, so if you look here, mile and 3/8, this isn't, I'm not going to show the replay. Maybe this is one of those horses who is going to be one of those, marathonish distance type horses who just with that late kick isn't good enough to get up in a little bit shorter, but also loves Churchill. So that could have just been a thing. You see 3 for 4 with a third at Churchill. So it could just be, hey, he was on the track that he loves. He beat a field that wasn't stupendous, but I like this horse. He always gives you a run. He just doesn't get up to win every time. What'd you think of him? Anything?
Yeah, I thought he was the best of this field. Maybe we'll see this horse back in the Bowling Green at Saratoga. I was just looking at the Saratoga stake schedule. The Bowling Green is a mile and 3/8.
Yeah, that's a nice one.
On turf. July 28th, so the timing works. Maybe I read somewhere that Cassie said that he was. Maybe I'm not being creative at all. But yeah, I thought. I also a horse for course, Pete.
That's what I was saying. Yeah, he's 3 for 4 at Churchill. So it could just be, hey, let's get him on the Churchill track, and that's what he's going to like. But yeah, I mean, if you look at the names here, it wasn't. You have an Appleby who isn't the typical Appleby
right.
Dolphin horse. Just it isn't one that just came over and exploded like the other ones. I mean, even I thought just not even taking money was surprising. Generally the Appleby Godolphin horses just take money to begin with, and this one didn't take a ton and ran fine. I mean, this horse is fine. There's nothing great.
Yeah, no, Web Slinger was the best horse on paper, was bet like the best horse, and ran like the best.
And Sugo I actually liked and was pissed because I bet Web Slinger to win without seeing the odds. And I would have probably played the Exacta instead because I liked Sugoi as just the speed. And I had put the bet in early and wasn't watching the race when it happened. So I was like, I probably should have just played the Exacta cold instead when they bet Web Slinger down. So I was hoping they would bet the Appleby horse down a little bit more. But I like Web Slinger. I hope he does go to some of those big races and maybe he catches one even though he did screw me when he beat me out of that nice pick 5 on Derby Day. He sort of screwed me that
Oh
year.
yeah, no, I didn't have that. The American
I
turf.
had him as a B. I had him as a B that day, but I didn't have. I had Mage and him split. I didn't have them on the right combinations that day, so that one pissed me off. The last one I want to mention, I assume you saw this race. I'll just bring up this chart here. Was this maiden special weight, and it was just interesting because we had Mentee, who's a Rapoli, a Rapoli Pletcher horse, full brother to Fierceness, full brother to your buddy Fierceness, and then Colloquial out of Acoma, who's been just a pretty hot sire so far. And some of those, and I'll show quickly here on hopefully it to see if it comes up. So yeah, it does, and I will show. Oops. We don't want the sound in my ear. So you see Mentee on the front here. It looks like it's just going to blow the field away.
Does Johnny wrap up here, or is the 5 really flying?
I got to watch again. I mean, he keeps looking back, though, so I don't know if he's looking back because he's like, am I running out of horse?
I mean, he's not asking for much right here. Now he starts asking again. But I'll tell you what, that was a head bob. That's a track record, right?
It was a track record. Yep, it was a track record.
Imagine he almost lost. Track record, he had to win a head bob.
And he wins a head bob. But I wondered, like, these are two. So these are two horses. You see City of Light. Here you go. Here's from City of Light out of a Nona Bell out of Stay Thirsty Mare, Fletcher Rapoli. Although you got to figure, well, they were zipping. So he was zipping around. And again, you don't
they
know
were moving.
Let go. Yes. Yeah. And they were both, I think it was both debuts. So just two fun ones to watch, I think. I don't know if it's.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's anything special, but anytime you can break a track record and you see a horse closing from that far out. I mean, I just like that horse. I think that horse looks like it could be fun.
Well, I mean, we're gonna see them. We're gonna see them at Saratoga. You're talking
in the
2-year-old, the 2-year-old races.
Yeah,
the first one is.
What's the first?
The first one is on opening weekend. It's the Sanford.
That's right.
Sanford.
Sanford, yeah.
But that's July 13th. What's that rate? Yeah, that's a month. I would say you might see that horse in the Sanford.
I mean,
and certainly
debuting at the hopeful,
you're shooting, at the end of the meet, you're looking at the hopeful. But the only thing I'm sure of, Pete, is that whatever he does and whatever he goes off at, Mentee is going to be overbet whenever he wins.
Yeah. Well, they probably both will. Well, Mentee, just from the fierceness angle. Here you go, Paul. Celtics parade in Boston will be interesting at 100.
Well, I hope they win, Tom, but I would say that the weather of the parade would never affect me, because the last thing I ever do is go someplace where there's going to be 500,000 people or 1 million people. So.
Yeah. Let's stay away from that. Let's keep yourself indoors, especially in the heat. Well, I think that's the last race I wanted to cover. Was there any other races that you caught your eye? There wasn't a ton going on anywhere else. I mean, I didn't see much, but is there anything else that caught your eye? Not necessarily racing, any news, anything else?
Well, as I said, I caught the City of Troy news right going into the weekend. One thing about Aidan O'Brien, our friend Aidan O'Brien, who we had on the show, he will tell you what he's doing. I mean, this is what we're doing, and where we're going to run him, and either here or here. And they want to go to the Classic, and they don't think he's ready for the Travers to come over here, and. So, I was disappointed in that, only because, as we said, Pete, our 3-year-old crop begging for someone like City of Troy to come over and take a shot, right?
Well, that's why it was disappointing, I guess, that Forever Young wasn't going to be sent back to the Classic. It would have been great to see him come by, and even if it was just for the Travers, that would have been fantastic to do Travers.
Well, he'll be back for the Breeders' Cup. Right?
That's what I mean. That's awesome, but it's too far. You want to see a horse like that made such an impression. You want to see him come over sooner, like you said, especially because we don't seem to have a star yet out of this crop. So we didn't talk much about your boy Sierra Leone and the Cruz boy Sierra Leone.
Yeah.
What do you think of his prospects? Do you think he just needs maturation?
I don't know.
It's not like he can't catch one of these. It's just the point.
No, he can, and that wasn't. I was a little disappointed. I think Chad is obviously a Hall of Famer, and he does tell you what he's thinking. But I think he went a little bit. We know it was a speed favoring racetrack, okay? But a couple of things. One, Groupie won a very slow-paced Suburban coming from last.
Yeah.
Okay. And Randomized benefited from if it was a speed favoring racetrack, and he had, look at did it play to Sierra Leone's strengths? No. Is that why he lost the race? I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
I'm wondering if Sierra Leone is a little bit kind of a more polished version of Tapit Trice.
Tapit Trice, yeah, one
more
of those
polished.
kind of, yeah, a little bit, yeah.
But having said that, Pete, if that horse puts it together and wins the Travers by 5, I will be the least surprised person on. You can't be shocked at it.
Well, especially if you start getting horses like Fierceness and Muth and Dornock, and you get some horses who maybe would heat the pace up a little bit more.
Yeah.
Then now you're talking about something to close into. And to me, just put him out in the 15 path. So if he does come left a little bit, at least he doesn't run into anybody.
Yeah.
You just put him out. Just put him out as far as you can.
Yeah, I will say this, Pete. Watching that race live, and knowing how great he can close, we've all documented. But I thought where he was, and yes, considering the track, that at the first turn, I eliminated Sierra Leone from winning that race.
Yeah. Well,
which is too bad because I bet him.
So that's a whole other point. Yeah. Keep losing money on him.
Is Sierra Leone at this point in the conversation for end of year honors? He has to be, just mainly because as you and I have beat to a dead horse, so to speak. There's just no one right now. You'd have to say Mystic Dan because he won the Derby
and was
second in the Preakness, but. Are you cutting in line to bet Mystic Dan and the Travers, Pete?
No,
I mean,
no, I'm not. And I mean, when you had 3 Triple Crown winners who were basically double-digit odds, 3 individual ones who were all double-digit odds, it just bodes that it's not the best class.
Yeah. So Sierra Leone, like you say, get the right trip and the right pace, be a little closer. But I would say the one person who wasn't upset about those developments that night, Pete, was probably Tyler Gaffleone. And again,
Pratt was pretty happy. Yeah,
and Pratt didn't do anything wrong, but I think with Tyler, I think would submit that. Well, I didn't either, and that's debatable. That you could debate whether he should have been prepared for the lug in the Derby, but
there's a lot going on in that race, and it's
right. I just think Pete, the horse is getting to that kind of enigma stage, right? Where you kind of don't know what to do. And if you bet him, even if he wins, he's never going to be the right price, right? Yeah. And if you don't bet him and he beats you, you're pissed off because you bet him so many times, right? So it's just not an ideal, that, and even in the Belmont, that it was a terrible betting circumstance if you wanted to, because it wasn't a lot you could do with him.
He could be the type of horse that if he runs in the Jim Dandy and runs like a closing third again, and you get some of those big boys in the Travers, then maybe you're talking about the 4th, 5th choice potentially, and then you get lucky and see if you can. I mean, he's a hard horse to leave off a ticket because he's always running late, but we'll worry about that. We'll worry about that when we get a little closer. But it's exciting. We love the summer 3-year-old season. We love the summer season in general, but it'd be nice to see a couple of these sort of step forward and look like top-notch horses down the road. So I think that about closes us out for my co-host tonight, Paul Halloran from the Saratoga Special and Boston Celtic fan, who will be rooting right after this for the Celtics to win number 18. For myself, Pete Visco, for everyone in the chat, thanks for joining us as always. And again, real quick, Wednesday, B&B. Thursday, Picks and Ponies. You'll see me and Paul back talking Ohio Derby. Please join us. Join us live in the chat. Again, don't crush your bets yet. Unless you're betting Ascot tomorrow, then very much.
I'll be betting Ascot tomorrow.
Yes, I think a lot of people in the chat will be. So crush your bets tomorrow. Take care, everybody. See you.
Good night.
Kravitz. If you have not followed his Triple H horse racing podcast, you're missing out. It's one of the best podcasts in the country.